How you can leave compelling messages of love. Lee's story. I lost my father 20 years ago to a heart attack. I lost my mother last year to cancer. My mother was 79, my father 61. I have a few albums of photos showing our family through the years, but what's not there are any audio files. As a consequence, I've lost any memory of what my parents sounded like. I wish I could travel back in a time machine and video record them, capturing them telling their stories in their own way. There are two main styles of video that our clients usually create, the autobiography and the memoir. The autobiography focuses a lot of attention on the correct dates of events, of making sure that events are spoken of in chronological order. There's also a focus on making sure that names are complete and correct. The memoir focuses less on the absolute chronological accuracy of events, but more on what happened that seemed funny or important. The impact of the story of the event is more important than the accuracy of the story. Names are mentioned where necessary, but a full listing of who was there is probably not. Autobiographies are focused on the truth of the event, whereas memoirs focus on the feelings and repercussions around those events. There's more likely to be humour used in memoirs than autobiographies. Quality. What's deemed acceptable video quality by the viewing public has undergone rapid change. The video you are about to see is less than 10 years old and was high quality at the time of its publication. It may not be apparent when you watch it on a small screen, but on a modern TV or computer screen, the lack of quality or resolution is clearly evident.
Hello, I'd like to order french fries, a burger, and a milkshake. This is a library. I'd like to order french fries, a burger, and a milkshake.
The current standard is for 4K video. This is video quality miles above the quality of the video you've just seen. It is archival quality video. But already there are cameras shooting 8K, which is double the size and quality of 4K. As technology improves, so will the viewing demands of the public. To safeguard the longevity of your video, make sure that however you record your video, you are using at least 4K video. Here's Barbara and Bruce sharing snippets from their videos about their history and their values.
My parents, my father was a produce merchant, which was, they were an agent between the farmer and the baker. He delivered in eggs and butter. They had a factory over in Maylands, and I used to go over there sometimes, and they'd, down in the basement, you'd have all these people putting eggs up against lights and testing whether they were all right and putting them into the different categories and things like that. And Mum used to work good, well, it was Marshall's, but then it became Myers later in the shop. And then I think she finished up in the crockery department in John Martin's when she got married. And it was a nice little thing. I heard that the manager said to her, we've just got these 2 new tea sets in from England. Do you like them? And she said, yes. He said, which one do you like? And she said, oh, I think that one. She said, okay, you take it. She said, hey, we won't order that, you take it. So he gave her a whole tea set, you know. I can't remember. Actually, Drew's got it now, so he can look after it. So that was a nice little thing that they did.
And that part of it, but community and friends. You've got to be involved in your community. I mean, if you look over the years, I think I've touched on it already. Mandy's been with the Guides, 42 years as a leader she did with the Guides. Plus,
these are values then that we
oh, absolutely, they're values. They're values that you,
values to live by.
yeah, values to live by, and the guide law and the scout law, you know, that, and the promise. Those are things. They're values to live by, and you only learn them by doing that sort of thing. I mean, I'm an atheist now, but I grew up in the church and believe the Ten Commandments are immensely valuable. But you don't need to have a Christian church to have the Ten Commandments. And whether or not you had a church, you would have still eventually, a community would have developed the Ten Commandments, because you can't live as a community. Now, what is it in the book Sapiens? He reckons 150 people is the most that anybody can know, that any one person can't know more than 150 people. So if you want to live in a community of more than 150 people, you can't interact with everybody. So you've got to develop rules that allow a standard for interaction. Right? Otherwise, people will go off and do their own thing. So you've got to develop standards. So whether or not it came through the Ten Commandments or whatever, and I'm sure they were actually developed long before they ever appeared as the Ten Commandments, those were the sorts of rules that were written, and any community has to develop them. Communities have to have those myths that they can live by to enable the community to work.
Here's Ray suggesting to his family that they take the time to capture the family history in some permanent form.
Well, that talks a bit about, not really the history, I wouldn't go through the genealogy of the family, but that gives you a history linked together and just different stories that are passed on. And I want you to make an important distinction here about stories and history. Because in our family, the history was all passed on through the stories over the dinner table or the lunch table. And my kids still talk about what they learned about their grandfather and grandmother and all these stories. And they usually be stories wrapped up in some amusing tale of some sort, which also got blown completely out of proportion when appropriate, as families do. But we wouldn't have any history recorded or written down or anything if it hadn't been for those discussions. And sometimes I think we've got to remember to record some of those things and to speak about those things. The other thing I would implore you to do is to ask those questions, those ones you don't want to ask, or you in fact may want to know about asking them, but you're not sure what's the right time. With your friends, with your family. This is where the rich part of the history is passed on. It's not just following down a chart for who begat who, begot who, who begot who. These are the stories that come from within the family and are passed on. But what worries me is that might drift away, or with families that are really particularly large also, and they move out over the whole country, that often a lot of that will be lost. So I implore families to give some thought about what they're recording with the history. And it's as simple as these days, you video with your phone if you like, or this grand version we have working here with my video history. But find some way to record and measure those things and ask the most important questions. Not just the things you always would, but like I could never get from my dad about this Digby flying cross, for example. Did I ask enough time to know the questions? Did people brush it off as not important? Well, it might not be important to you now, but it is to the next generation and their grandchildren and what on. So you don't have to have a huge store of information, but if you think about how you do it and pass it down from family to family.
And finally, here's Jenny and Tracy urging us all to record our parents and ourselves for our family's sake.
Hi, I'm Jenny DeLacy. When I met Lee Hopkins and he was telling me about his video biography service for terminally ill patients, I had a pang of regret. My mum passed away when I was just 18 years old. And at the time, there were 5 kids, so myself and 4 siblings, and 2 grandkids. And now, 32 years later, there are 5 kids, 14 grandchildren, and 4 great-grandchildren. And I just think how wonderful it would have been to be able to share with our kids her personality and her funny little stories and her lovely smile, and let them see themselves in her. I think people really like to see where they've come from. Would you agree? I think it's a lovely service. And so if you're thinking about doing it and you want a skilled interviewer who knows how to draw out those stories and put people at their ease, then you're in the right place. So I highly recommend Lee and his service, and I wish that I'd been able to meet him and use that service a long time ago.
The other part of my story is that I too, as we all do, have a mother. 10 years ago, my mother started to get a bit forgetful, and we never really thought anything of it. 10 years on, she has dementia. In a perfect world, if I could hop in my time machine one more time and go back, I would go and do a My Video History with my mother, so that her now grandchildren, her biological grandchild, who is 4 years old, who she waited her entire life for because it is her only biological grandchild, has a memory of her. He knows where he comes from. He can see why I look the way that I do, why I talk the way that I do, and where my history and roots are from. A sense of belonging and a sense of a family history gives all of us such a beautiful sense of meaning. A video history of where we come from gives you such a sense of belonging, which is so important for the foundations of who we are. It sets us up to move forward with strength. I wish I had this for my children, of my mother. We left it too late. Don't be like me, just get it done.
Thank you for watching this video. If you would like more information about the services we offer, please visit our website at myvideohistory.com.au, or you can call us on 08 8120 0300. We look forward to hearing from you.